I like my movies with unapologetic stories. Thank you. But what is an unapologetic story? I'm sure many of you are already asking. Well, to me, it's a story that never forces an explanation out. Too often we get movies that decide certain things must be explained to the audience, be it something to avoid plot holes, or because apparently we won't understand the story without extra information. I don't like that. While a good story can be fleshed out plenty, a great story knows where to trim the fat and let the audience understand, without bogging the story down with unnecessary information. For example, a few years ago the movie Ted hit theaters, a comedy about a foul-mouthed teddy bear that comes to life due to Mark Wahlberg wishing on a star. Now, whether or not you love this movie, I know we can agree the explanation is enough. We all know about wishing stars, we really don't need more to justify this movie.
Look what Jesus did! Look what Jesus...
Are all movies that avoid over-explaining the stories great? No, but the best movies never feel like they're explaining too much, or worse, ashamed of their genre's more fantastical aspects. Conversely, not all movies that over-explain themselves are bad, but plenty are unable to attain greatness because of that. Time and time again, I find myself loving movies that are unapologetic about their worlds, while those that aren't often make me wish they were. One of the most beloved fantasy films ever made is The Princess Bride, a fairy tale that is a prime example of why movies should never be ashamed of their genres. The movie opens with our world, a boy is sick in bed and his grandfather comes to read a story. Personally, I find these types of openings to be among the least interesting. Get us to the story, forget the modern world. But this movie makes it work because just as the boy thinks he's getting some boring story, we believe that too. As the movie goes along, not only does he get hooked in, so do we. Almost as fast as he does. Yet the funny thing is, the story is never made hip by the grandfather. He just presents the story to the boy, the proxy of the audience, as is. The movie does poke fun at tropes of the genre, but it never feels above them, nor does it try to explain the more ludicrous aspects. We are expected to take everything at face value. No explanation needed. Not that the grandfather would even give it anyways. This is important because a lesser film would have had the grandfather changing the story to keep the boy's interest, while the movie itself would have probably chosen to flat out mock the tropes rather than gently poke at it. A less charming film for the cynics who need real world logic, rather than just accepting the fairy tale logic.
Inconceivable.
If you want examples of movies that do the opposite of that, you need to look no further than the recent string of Disney remakes. By no means is what I'm about to talk about limited to these remakes, but they are incredibly common here. Cinderella can't just live with her stepfamily, she has to stay because of her mother's memory. Gaston isn't just a jerk, he's now obsessed with a war that probably left him mad. These pieces of information don't add anything to the story. They slow it down so that the picky among us can have reality seep into our fiction. At what point did any of us sincerely want the Disney version of Cinderella to explain why staying in the house was important? I know it was commonly nitpicked, while some understandably thought it was sexist, but the thing is, we have a fairy tale being played out. It doesn't excuse the sexism, I'll grant you that, but the point isn't whether or not Cinderella is a feminist hero, it's that kindness can get you good things. Stories often provide lessons, even while entertaining us. To focus entirely on the logic defeats the purpose.
And who are you? How would you rule a kingdom? Best to leave it to me. That way we all get what we want.
For me, Cinderella never left her abusive stepmother because she had no financial way to do so. Because she never thought she could get more. Remember, she lost her father at a young age. And because the time and setting suggests she'd be unable to anyways, given her status as a young woman. But mainly because it's meant to teach young viewers to be kind.
Nothing is ever given. For everything we must pay and pay.
That's not true. Kindness is free.
You may not like the story, and that's fine, but to demand the fairy tale add real-world logic, like maybe she stays because she wants to keep her mother's memory alive, is unnecessary, and silly information at that. It doesn't add to her character, it just exists so Cindy can come off less moronic and submissive, which isn't the point. The problem with adding unnecessary information to your story is that in doing so, the story begins to lose confidence. The info is added so we can understand the logic, but it also feels like an apology that sums up to, wait, sorry, I didn't mean to assume you'd get the idea, here, let me explain why magic. If the story is good, adding more explanation won't add greatness. It'll just detract from the entertainment. And this isn't just a fairy tale thing, mind you. It can affect any genre.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
So, when are explanations okay? Everyone will have a different answer, but for me, it's when they're there for a specific story-related reason, not for logic or to clear some sort of plot hole. So if the story says, to break the spell you need true love's kiss, or you can't hold a space rock because it's too powerful for mortals, those are fine. I need that info. On the other hand, the story will be fine if you don't explain why the gremlins don't multiply in the snow, despite it technically being water. I think you get my point. I'm not gonna drag this out anymore, so yeah. Movies like Beauty and the Beast 2017, Man of Steel, and even something I like Rogue One would benefit with confidence in their stories. Less useless explanation. Movies I love, like The Princess Bride, Superman, and Star Wars, they all benefit from embracing their stories and being unapologetic ones at that. See you next time.